Their job? Watching energy fluctuations and scanning the deep, on the lookout for anything interesting. Isolation pay and incentives were well enough, but it took a special person to cut themselves out of society for so long. Engineers had to rely solely on machines and good fortune. Many people didn't like that blind faith, especially when the majority of equipment was crap. "My third tour," Yuri said, a sense of pride punctuating his statement. The general couldn't imagine the pay being that good, noticing an outer hull panel that looked to have been beaten flat by a ball-peen hammer. They emerged into an observation room, which wasn't much wider than the corridor. A dingy and faded towel, probably once canary blue, was draped over the back of a worn console chair. Piles of MRE trash, Enviro wraps, and miniature bottles of empty hot sauce were crammed into a bio bag, securely jammed under the chair. Over time, a learning robot like the general could develop, or learn, particular emotions, one of a few of his kind. Hundreds of years he'd spent on tight battleships, slimline cruisers, and transports packed to the ceiling with cargo. He didn't have claustrophobia, but he recognized the uncomfortable sensation of being corkscrewed and pretzeled into tight areas. Yuri effortlessly twisted himself into the console chair like he'd done tens of thousands times before. Then he dug in one of his fleece jacket pockets and produced an object. He placed a toy rubber duck in a cup holder taped to a wall panel. This rendezvous would be the general's last before setting out into the deep. He could have just as easily had Yuri transmit the reconstructed packet data over to the ship, but he thought the crew might like a last chance to get any lingering affairs in order, stretch their legs. Once he realized just how small the Wayfarer buoy actually was, he decided it wasn't worth it for the crew to disembark into an even smaller and beat-up ship. So he kept them working on the expedition ship cargo bags as the general went with the buoy's engineer to find out a little more about the message. "A month ago we picked up a broadcast," Yuri said, as he turned to and flipped a couple switches on an old but still intricate comm panel. One dial knob popped off, and he attempted a clumsy catch. It fell on his lap. He cursed in a couple different languages as he fished around his crotch for the runaway knob. Once found, he put it back where it belonged. A fist tap stuck it back in place. "As soon as we picked up the signal on the general receiver, we went tight on isolation," Yuri began, pointing to one screen. It showed a grid overlay of the surrounding quadrant. A yellow dashed line trailed off screen. A red cone of uncertainty over the dotted line expanded the further away it went from the buoy. "See," he pointed to the screen as he adjusted controls, often glancing at the general like he wanted to make sure he still met his approval, or probably because he was short on interaction. "I deployed tracking drones," Yuri continued, his rapid-fire talk showing his enthusiasm to share his work with another warm body, even if it was a robot. "They've begun scans, begun cataloging. I've already been running Frenini diffraction routines," he said, as he absently stroked his duck's head. The yellow had rubbed off long ago, leaving a dirty white duck's skull. "Already I've traced the signal out a few million miles, give or take a million. Your Navimol will have a good head start with the wayfinders I've planted." Finished, Yuri relaxed in his chair, obviously proud of his work. Then, in another disregard for social norms, he began blatantly picking his remaining teeth with a long, grease-encrusted fingernail. Living alongside humans for over 300 years had given the general an amazingly short attention span for such things as stray transmission tracking. Now, he regretted not accessing the buoy's internal network to find this out himself. After this stop, the general and his team would jump from this point. Then, there would be no turning back for the lone expedition ship, short of the whole exploration party being wiped out by some unforeseen calamity anyway, but then there wouldn't be much to return. But one thing interested the general about the transmission the buoy had captured. This is why he'd wanted to gather the information in person, in case there was more to the message that the engineer could fill him in on.